NAFI would like to thank Sporties, ForeFlight, and Garmin for sponsoring this episode of the More Right Rudder podcast. This episode is sponsored by ForeFlight. Designed by pilots for pilots, ForeFlight helps CFIs bridge the gap between the classroom and the cockpit. Bring weather briefings to life with real-time map overlays, use track logs and 3D review for more dynamic debriefing, and use ForeFlight's next-generation logbook to log and share flights, endorsements, and more. Visit foreflight.com to get started. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the More Right Rudder podcast from the National Association of Flight Instructors. My name is Sarah Staudt, and I'm the Program Development Manager here at NAFI and your host for this podcast. Joining us today is Don Wykoff. Don started his instructional career in the United States Air Force, teaching in the T-38 and F-16. After transitioning to the civilian world, Don had a distinguished career as a captain on 3 different aircraft with Delta Airlines. Today, Don is a consultant, mentor, and coach within Sporty's Academy. He also recently earned the prestigious Wright Brothers Master Award for 50 years of safe flying. Welcome, Don.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to have you on the show. You're here as part of Sporty's with their sponsorship. Sporty's has been a very long time and generous sponsor of NAFI and the More Right Rudder podcast, so we greatly appreciate that ongoing support. And primarily, you're here today to talk about one of the biggest things going on in the flight instruction world, or at least laying the groundwork for it, which is the modernization of Part 141. So, gosh, the current rules for Part 141 have been around for decades is probably the appropriate unit of measurement there.
Yeah, a long time.
A long time. So yeah, there's a lot that's, not being accounted for, when it comes to modern technologies and things like that. So why now? Why is this initiative kicking off to modernize Part 141?
Well, for whatever reason, everybody seems to be of the mindset that it now seems to be the time. And maybe it's a little bit of a push inside the agency, a push with a lot of the stakeholders out in the system. But we've arrived at a spot where we have a lot of the right people at the table and a lot of interest at the FAA to let's go take a look at this rule and let's see, lift the hood up on it a little bit and let's see what we got, see if we can make it better. And primarily, I think when we talk about modernization of it, what we're really talking about is what you said, Sarah. Are there some other tools that we can incorporate? Clearly, in those decades since the last time, there's been plenty of technological changes and training devices, simulators, now with AI coming along, things along those lines that kind of open up the lens a little bit to, is there a better way of doing business here? I think that combined with the fact that, we've had good success out of Part 141 schools, but the reality of it is they're really a small percentage of the flight schools out there, mainly associated with universities that can take it opportunity, take advantage of the rule along with the educational opportunity to lower the amount of time for a restricted ATP is a bit of an incentive. And then I think now a lot of people start looking at it with the DPE shortage. How can we get our check rides done? We really have a lot of people, even inside of 141 programs, that are waiting a long time. So with the ability to do examining authority and maybe streamlining this pipeline, I think we can start off at the front end of it, take a good look at through this modernization effort and go, is there a better way for us to produce the professional pilot? That doesn't mean we're not going to produce private pilots or maybe someone who gets an instrument. There's clearly an avenue, there's clearly desire, there's clearly a way to do all that inside and outside of 141. But if we really now back off a notch and go, how do we do the best job of providing tomorrow's aviator, professional aviator, someone that wants to go off and do flying as a career, whether it be in the airlines, corporate, a myriad of the other things out there that we can do professionally. Can we do this job better? Can we produce an even better, even safer, even more competent pilot? And in some cases, we look at it in today's environment where we start at zero time and maybe get up around 250, 300 hours get the ratings and start some flight, being a flight instructor. what can we do between that time and they get their, 1,000, 1,250, or 1,500 hours to go fly with an airline? Clearly, there's a learning, a training, a mentoring process that can be included in there too. And I think those are all valuable pieces that we kind of make up a new pot of gumbo to get to the back end. How can we put all these pieces in play? And equally important is make it scalable. So whether it's a smaller 141 or one of our really large flight schools, there's something in there for everybody to be able to accomplish the same goal.
Yeah, and I've experienced, kind of both ends of that. I went through a big university program and then instructed at a Part 61 school with 3 airplanes. So you've talked a bit about how 141 right now is largely seen in those larger scale flight training environments and the desire to modernize these rules to make it scalable, down to maybe that 3 airplane operation, something they're thinking of scaling it that small, and what would be the benefits of having a small scale 141 operator? That operator right now probably wouldn't put through the volume, which is one of the bigger barriers to the current 141 rules.
Well, I think if we can take, and this is exactly what we're doing. It's like you're reading from our worksheet right now, Sarah. Is how do we do that? And I think what we're really leaning into is today you're just a 141 operator, and then maybe have examining authority for the particular program, private, instrument, commercial, whatever. There's an element that we want to keep because we have a need for it. We shouldn't just say, "Hey, nice job. You're only 4 airplanes, but we don't want you in the club." Well, no, that's not the way to go about business because at the end of the day, whatever happens in a 141 environment will filter down into a Part 61. It by almost by definition, right? They're going to gel. They're going to become a little bit of a hybrid. So we need to do things that are scalable enough for a smaller operator, but they may not have the need for a lot of the bells and whistles that come out of the larger schools associated with 4 year degrees and such,
Hmm.
with the way that they run. So there needs to be something for everybody. So if we can start off and get into an approach where we truly have the ability to take that smaller shop but give them some of the privileges working with other bigger schools to help them out, working with the FAA to get set up, so they can also take advantage of the examining authority piece that goes with it, which is right now in the day of DPE shortage is very, very valuable, and there's just no reason why. It's really a lot like what the airlines do with their APD program, where they are developing the same kind of thing. I don't think you have to be massive to do that. You just need to have structure to do that and prove that you can do it
Right,
and then
structure and
continue
oversight.
on. Yeah, structure and oversight. So we should build the system to that. And then likewise, as we move to the other tiers, you'll get more privileges because you're putting more effort into it. You're going to have more of a quality management overview to everything. And your relationship with the FAA might be just a little bit different, much like we see in safety management systems or
Hmm.
in other venues today where we have a different way of working rather than that traditional approach. I think we really are looking very hard at it can be something for everybody. How we do that, how we define it, and turn that into a regulation is now kind of the special sauce there, if you will. But it can be done.
Right. So let's go back for a moment and talk about those advantages of being 141. 'Cause like I said, I went through a big 141 university program. I did in-house examining authority, private through double I
Hmm.
never wrote a check to a DPE until my MEI. And so, so I do have experience with that. And I, can understand how that can make things smoother for those
Hmm.
operators. But also, there's two sides to every coin. But overall, what would be the advantages of one of those smaller scale operators looking at becoming a 141?
Well, I think one of the things is it is the structure and the structure of the flight training that elevates it a little bit and kind of quality. Now, when I say that, I immediately don't want to get the darts from the Part 61s because they do a good job. But by and large, the system as it's baked into the 141 probably sees that more holistically around. When you've jumped through into that, I think the standard is a little tighter, maybe. So, but I think for an operator to go, okay, why do I want to be there today? there's not a lot of incentive other than
Mhm.
examining authority, because the other hoops you have to run through are pretty tight. How you set your syllabus up, what your facilities look like, and you really have a different relationship with your FSDO and your POI.
And examining authority isn't a guarantee or a given. Like that even takes once you've got your provisional certificate or, your full certificate, you've still got a road to get there.
You do, and that road can be looked at as, okay, are we really providing a significant difference in quality to know that the examiner and the examining authority is equivalent to a DP, or is it a barrier to bring more schools into alignment, but also changing what you want to do inside of 141? So, I think it's a two-sided coin here. We want to build the program so we can get an even better product out at the back end. But at the same time, half the battle with 141 is getting in, because it's
Hmm.
so reliant on your FSDO, where they have the manning to work with you and mentor you that. And as you said, Sarah, once you get in to prove that you can do examining authority, I think there's two problems we're really looking at hard. One is we're not sure that the metrics being used to have examining authority really and truthfully define if that's a quality school or not, and whether
Okay,
you've
that's
got
a fair
quality of
point.
instruction, right?
Hmm.
So when we just go, okay, you've met 80% pass rate on here to come into 141, um, I would ask the question, what's the difference between the 79% school and the 81% school? Is it just the fact the numbers in that day, maybe someone didn't have as good a check? Because it
Hmm.
doesn't go back and look at the structure of the flight school, the quality of the instructors, the check instructors, the leadership. What do you do when you find a problem inside your school, and how do you handle it? Which to me, over on a performance-based world, is what I would want to look at for a quality school, instead of going, you only passed 79%. You're not a very good school. We're not letting you in. And then the same thing comes to examining authority. What's the difference between 89 and 91? Um,
Right.
so, we have to find proxies for those and appropriate ones. And generally, as it's been proven out in all aspects of the aviation world, we need to go get some data. If someone says, well, I think we ought to have more time in this or that, do we get in group thinking? Everybody goes, yeah, that's what we should do. Or do we go, well, does anybody have any data that proves that? Or are we just
Right.
all barking up the
Yeah.
same tree? So let's go get some data. Let's figure out what we need to do, and then let's modify in the appropriate way. And
Mhm.
then lastly, in the effort that we have, in all honesty here and transparency, we think that, like with a lot of the risk and performance-based approaches to everything in aviation, at the FAA, it moves to a central office to take a look at for approval. And are you doing it right? We
Mhm.
think this needs to move there also, because there's good, bad, or different. I think there's enough individual variability amongst FSDOs and POIs that we need to take that out a little bit.
Yes, the what is it? Something like 88, 89 individual FAAs. I've heard them. So, what and like you said, manpower and all that plays a huge role in your relationship.
Does.
And capacity of your FSDO, and some FSDOs see very high turnover rates, and so by time
Hmm.
you get a new inspector in there and they go through training and get qualified, so even just having a person in the seat at the FSDO isn't enough. Even the inspectors have very long training periods and qualifications and levels and
Hmm.
all sorts of things.
Exactly. So, yeah, I think it would be helpful with a singular office that is going to approve. And as we move into some other pieces, maybe they get some help that they clearly have. This makes it sound like I'm going to go into FSDO bashing here, and that's not my objective. It's more of, they have a lot on their plate, so
Hmm.
we help each other. So, we go and mysteriously find 100,000 new FAA employees that can go work at the FSDOs. Before I would want to put them in, I would go, do we have the right process and everything working with our customers out in the field to best utilize all those people? We're not going to
Right.
get to
It's
100,000, so let's go get them first.
Yeah, I mean, it's not so much that the FISDOs are doing anything wrong, but some of them are so understaffed and or they're, like I said, there's turnover and the training periods. None of these are bad things. They're just simply
Mm-mm.
facts of life, and you want your regulator to be well trained and all that. So, I go to my FISDO's annual designee meeting. We typically go in May, and I meet new inspectors every year
Hmm.
at that. So, and some I only see one year, and maybe a function of they're just not at that meeting that particular year, but some I just never see or hear from again.
Yeah.
So
And I think
they
as
also
we
move around and things like that.
and I think as we move forward into getting more schools with examining authority, which I think we should do, I think it also provides an opportunity instead of going one side going, well, I don't think they're going to be as good in safety assurance as our current DPE force. And we can have that argument all day long. My answer to it would be, let's make sure we harmonize the product for both of them at the back end. So they're essentially doing the same thing.
I mean, as by the book currently, they should be anyways.
It's
So,
ACS, right? Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Yeah, so though we all know how that goes as well. So this is a Herculean effort to try to
Yeah.
centralize and standardize something that happens across such a broad swath of geography
Hmm.
and scale.
Absolutely.
All right. So as we move on here, let's talk about Sporty's Academy and Sporty's choice to be a Part for 141 school. So what was the driving factor of that?
So we have long been, um, I would say the operator, but the University of Cincinnati has an aviation program,
Hmm.
and they're at our University of Cincinnati Claremont campus, which is right next to us at the Claremont County Airport. So a long time ago, we entered into a relationship to basically run that flight school for them. So we teach the college level aviation academics in the classroom. I do a couple of courses, and our chief and assistant do other courses, so that we're basically kind of instructors at the university level. And then we run the flight operation, the flight school, the flight labs, if you will, for
Hmm.
them. So that all drug everything down into the 141 world for us, so that we could, when we went to the restricted ATP world, that we could align all this so that with an associate's degree, we could provide a 1,250-hour restricted
Hmm.
ATP through the university with a degree, and there is a bachelor's add-on that is voluntary at the back end of that. And then we do, so basically we run kind of many 141s. We have the 141 academic portion at the university, which has a separate certificate, and
Hmm.
then we run it at the flight school for private instrument and commercial single engine.
Well, that sounds like it keeps you couple of guys pretty busy.
Yeah, it's no shortage. We generally run at the university student level. We're about 90 at any
Hmm.
given time going through. We run a Part 61 for anybody that would like to, become interested in aviation and get their private or instrument or whatever rating outside of the 141 world and those certificates and ratings and such. So between that, we fly a fleet of 172s to do that, one RG and then a 182 for a little more advanced flying and such.
Hmm.
And then, so yeah, it keeps us busy, particularly when we have to deal with some Midwest weather, which always can be a little challenging, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's good stuff. And then as you said, my role in that whole thing is, someone asked why I don't do any flight instruction myself, is there's some young folks that want to go get my old job. I don't need to get in their way and log time. I'll ride along with them, I'll mentor them, I'll spend time at different spots, but I want them to go out and get the experience. And if I can help them and the student, that's what I do. So that's kind of the genesis of us with our 141 program.
It's good to have someone in those roles. I think that's a critical piece that is a challenge to come across in general in the industry.
Hmm.
So as we wrap up here, if you were to get out your crystal ball and say, what do you see as the future of flight training? What would you see in your crystal ball?
My crystal ball would be that I'm excited for the future for a couple reasons. One, we're having this conversation how to make it better, and we haven't really had that in a long time. So I get
Hmm.
energized about that and get excited. I get energized about the use of technology, not to replace flying time or try to replace any current pieces, but more so to better prepare to go use that hour of flying time that we're going to go do. Now, I can think about the goggles to be able to go do and think about virtually starting the aircraft and taxiing it out to be able to do that virtually in some repetition and get used to the switchology. So it's just a little less gas that gets burnt and be able to use the
Hmm.
other resource a little better. I just think that there's so many tools if we want to use them and be open up. But I think that only thing I worry about in that is that we get a little too risk averse and not build ourselves a way to make it better in any kind of modernization, that we take a look at how can we take the next steps as they come to us and be able to grasp them instead of saying, nope, can't do that.
Yeah, because technology is not going to slow down. I mean, if anything, it's going to
Mm-mm.
continue to evolve faster. And, simulation played a big role even when I was going through my flight training, almost 20 years ago now. And we
Mm-hmm.
use those quite a bit. And now, when I look at how realistic even some of these desktop simulators can be and sophisticated, and now virtual reality is coming along as the next extension. I haven't had a chance to experience that yet myself, but I don't doubt it's coming and that it will play a role in flight training somehow, even if it's like just you said, as a procedures trainer to virtually taxi around, and something you could do on your own time to
Right.
practice. And then, when you did get in that, higher level training device or something with an instructor, you're more well versed and then
Yeah,
onto the aircraft.
absolutely. We know the airplanes are going to change out in the future, what our cockpits look like. But I'd even go back. It's not anything we're going to touch in our modernization, but I go back and look at some of the maneuvers you have to do for a private and commercial in the ACS, and I go, yeah, that was pretty cool. And maybe you need to do a lot of that in a World War II airplane. So
Hmm.
I need to do that maneuver, or can I do a different type of maneuver to better train a pilot for today and tomorrow's environment? I'm
Yeah.
really big on core flying skills. I'm really big on hand flying skills, et cetera, et cetera. But at the same time, we better get used to and have our students trained for how to run a glass cockpit, because that's what they're going to do.
So, all right. Well, Don, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on More Right Rudder with us today, and for Sporty's continued sponsorship of both NAFI and the podcast.
We're happy to be a partner, and thanks for the opportunity, Sarah.
Yeah, we're happy to. You have a great one.
Bye bye now.